Welcome to The Explainer. Tonight we're going to journey back nearly 400 years to the remarkable world of the Ottoman Empire. And we're not doing this to witness great battles or meet powerful sultans. No, instead we're going to quietly discover the everyday lives of ordinary people. The bakers, the merchants, the craftsmen, the farmers, the mothers, the children, basically the families whose peaceful day-to-day routines kept literally one of history's greatest empires alive.
Picture this, the first light of dawn is just slowly spreading across the rooftops of a quiet Ottoman town.
A gentle breeze rolls in, carrying the scent of fresh bread, olive trees, and the nearby sea. The narrow stone streets, they're completely empty. The wooden shutters on the houses remain tightly closed.
Really, the only signs of life right now are just a few cats quietly wandering through the peaceful, sleeping marketplace.
Now, you might not know this, but the Ottomans formally divided their society into two distinct classes. You had the rulers, or the military class, and then you had the ruled. We almost always hear about the history of grand palaces and epic battles, right? But today, our focus is squarely on the ruled, the bakers, the craftsmen, and the everyday families.
Section 1. Dawn over the Empire. Let's look at what happens right before the sun comes up. Our story begins with a young craftsman named Yusuf. He's 22 years old, and he lives with his parents, his grandmother, and two younger sisters in a modest wooden house overlooking the town. Every morning for Yusuf begins before sunrise. A distant call to prayer echoes softly across the town, its calm sound just drifting through the cool morning air. Moving on to Section 2, the multi-generational home. Let's look at the family structure. So like a lot of Ottoman families, 3 generations share the exact same home. As Yusuf quietly washes his face with cool water from a clay basin, it's really important to understand that these multi-generational, highly patriarchal households were the absolute foundational pillars of Ottoman society. It was the glue that held everything together.
Section 3. A simple morning meal. Because you gotta start the day right.
Downstairs, his mother prepares a simple breakfast. We're talking fresh bread, soft white cheese, olives, honey, and some warm herbal tea. The whole family sits down and eats together. Nobody rushes. The morning is just incredibly peaceful. The crucial takeaway here is how deeply cherished food was. Actually, historical sources recount this fascinating conversation between two ordinary Ottoman citizens talking about what they would eat if they suddenly became wealthy lords. And one of them simply replies, "I would eat soft bread and fresh onions. This is the best." They weren't dreaming of lavish, exotic meats. They just wanted simple, well-made staples.
Section 4. The Mahalle comes alive. The neighborhood awakens.
So, this local community was known as the Mahalle. Think of the Mahalle as a tightly knit city quarter that functioned almost like one giant extended family. Ottoman urban centers were hugely diverse, but within your specific Mahalle, you literally knew everyone. Daily life thrived right there, supported by a small market, a local mosque, maybe some fruit vendors. It was its own distinct social and cultural zone.
And as the morning progresses, one by one, oil lamps begin to glow behind those wooden windows. Doors slowly open. Shopkeepers start sweeping the stone streets outside their businesses. Bakers are placing fresh loaves into warm brick ovens, and that comforting smell of bread just completely spreads throughout the neighborhood.
Out in the streets, the community gathers. Children are carrying water from the public fountain, and neighbors are greeting one another warmly. Now, these fountains were absolutely essential. They weren't just built for the town's drinking water supply, but they were also needed for the ablutions, the washing required before daily prayers.
But here's a crazy detail from the sources. Before these dawn hours, the streets were highly regulated. If you were walking these unlit stone streets after the Isha, or the evening prayer, you were legally required to carry a lantern for safety. Without those portable oil lamps, nobody could even stir. So the sunrise was, quite literally, an unlocking of the city.
Section 5. The Ri'aya at work, the productive class.
These ordinary people were formerly known as the Raya, which translates to the flock. This was the incredibly vital class of merchants, craftsmen, and peasants. Make no mistake, they were the ones who produced the goods, paid the taxes, and literally sustained the state, year after year.
Outside, the town is really coming alive. Donkeys carry baskets of vegetables toward the marketplace. Fishermen are returning from the sea with their early catch. Carpenters unlock their small workshops. Coppersmiths prep their tools, and tailors start arranging these beautiful, colorful fabrics inside their tiny shops. It comes alive not with chaotic noise, but with quiet, deliberate purpose.
Every single person has a role, and every family contributes to the community. Meanwhile, in the much larger urban centers like Istanbul, you had these vast covered bazaars, like the famous Kapalı Çarşı. It became this bustling, incredibly productive city within a city. Just picture these arcaded streets, vaulted roofs studded with cupolas, and merchants smiling as they prep for another ordinary day under the soft, subdued light penetrating from above. What you really should take away from all this is how profoundly localized and honestly, how contented this existence was. Life inside the Ottoman Empire for most people wasn't filled with crazy adventures. Instead, it was a life of honest work, strong families, simple traditions, just peaceful routines that continued year after year, generation after generation.
So, as the warm morning sunlight fills the quiet town and another ordinary day in the Ottoman Empire gently begins, I want to leave you with a thought. As we leave Yusuf to his peaceful, highly structured day, ask yourself, how does this calm, community-driven Ottoman morning compare to the rushed, frantic reality of your own modern routine?
Welcome back to our explainer. Today we're diving into Chapter 2, Breakfast, Family, and the Start of the Day. We're going to gently step back in time, slowing way down to explore the quiet, everyday routines of an ordinary morning in the Ottoman Empire. So get comfortable, take a deep breath, and let's transport ourselves to a completely different era.
Just picture this. The golden morning sun is slowly rising over these beautiful red-tiled roofs. There's a cool breeze drifting through the narrow stone streets. The air is incredibly fresh, and all you can hear is the peaceful sound of birds. It's that quiet, almost magical promise of a brand new day just beginning to unfold.
And in that cool morning air, the street lanterns that have been burning all through the night are slowly being put out. A really peaceful silence just wraps around the town. As you look out, you see smoke gently starting to rise from hundreds of chimneys. The city is just naturally, calmly waking up.
Let's actually step inside for a moment. We pass through this beautifully carved wooden door, leaving the cobblestone streets behind, and we enter the inner sanctuary of a traditional wooden home. Let's call it Yusuf's home. Right here, his family is starting their day in just absolute tranquility. Inside, the whole family is gathered closely around a low table. And what's amazing here is that they really take their time. Nobody is eating in a hurry, nobody is rushing to get out the door. It's simply a quiet, grounding moment of shared gratitude before any of the day's tasks even begin. And their breakfast is so wonderfully simple and comforting. Imagine fresh white frangula bread that was baked just moments ago, soft cascaval cheese, dark lock olives, and sweet honey. There's creamy yogurt and warm milk, delicately sprinkled with fragrant cinnamon poured right into these small, beautiful cups. For them, these meals aren't just about food. They're moments of real connection. You've got the grandmother quietly sharing stories from her childhood while the younger sisters listen in. The father is smiling, finding a sense of strength in these simple, grounded moments. They're sharing everything: the food, the work, the responsibilities, and really just hope for the day ahead.
After breakfast, stepping outside, the family enters their Mahalle. Now you can think of the Mahalle as their neighborhood, but it was so much more than just a district or a zip code. It was this deeply connected, tightly knit quarter where literally every face was familiar. It functioned almost like a massive, extended family where everyone genuinely looked out for each other.
Right at the heart of the Mahalle, soaring minarets stretch up into the sky. And down below, you have the neighborhood fountain flowing. It provides this soothing, constant soundtrack of pure water spurting from stone jets. It's the perfect gathering spot, especially for the younger kids coming to fetch fresh water for the morning.
And then ever so slowly, the town comes alive. Merchants start unlocking those heavy wooden doors. Coppersmiths are out polishing shining trays, and tailors are carefully hanging these vibrant, colorful fabrics. Donkeys are quietly carrying sacks of grain past you. If you were standing there, the air would just be filled with this incredible mix of fresh bread, roasted coffee, and sweet pastries. But even as the town wakes up, everything moves at a calm, steady pace. There's no frantic rushing here, there's no jarring, stressful noise. It's really just the rhythmic, predictable comfort of a community waking up together exactly as they did the day before.
As the father makes his way to the marketplace, he joins the Esnaf. These were the organized guilds of craftsmen. But they weren't driven by cutthroat competition like we might see today. Instead, they were completely united by mutual support, very strict ethical codes, and this profound sense of brotherhood.
And this brotherhood was built on a lifelong journey of patience. It's not something you rushed. You began as a chirak, a young apprentice learning discipline. Then you moved quietly up to a kalfa, a skilled journeyman. And finally, through years of quiet devotion, you achieved the revered rank of usta, or master. It was entirely a life built on mastery, not shortcuts.
Back in his small workshop, sunlight is just starting to shine through the wooden windows. Yusuf gently places a block of walnut wood on his workbench. His simple tools are waiting exactly where he left them yesterday. Today, he's going to carve a beautiful wooden chest. And every single smooth cut he makes will reflect those years of quiet practice and patience.
You know, the big takeaway here is that for ordinary people, these simple moments are the true heart of life. Real history isn't always found in grand palaces or the movements of mighty armies. Often, it's found right here, in peaceful mornings shared with your family, your neighbors, and a day of honest, quiet work.
As the warm sun climbs higher into the clear blue sky, another beautiful day in the Ottoman Empire gently continues. So, as you let the steady rhythm of this ancient neighborhood carry you into a deep and restful peace, I'll leave you with this thought. If you could design the perfect, slow morning routine for your own life, which piece of this quiet world would you borrow? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Sleep well and have a wonderfully calm day ahead.
Welcome! Let's take a deep breath and just escape the modern hustle for a little while. Today, we're traveling back in time to experience a radically different, much more peaceful pace of life. We're going to spend an unhurried, fascinating morning in an Ottoman marketplace, just quietly observing how ordinary people lived, worked, and found this beautiful harmony in their daily routines. Okay, let's just gently dive into this. Close your eyes for a second and imagine the golden morning sun just beginning to reflect off the cool cobblestone streets. What did a morning actually sound like when the muezzin's gentle call to prayer echoed over those rooftops? Well, to find out, we're going to take a very slow, peaceful walk alongside a local craftsman named Yusuf. As he steps out of his home, you can feel the air is cool. The city is just beginning to stir, but with a quiet, steady, and incredibly deliberate rhythm. Yusuf carefully locks the heavy wooden door of his workshop behind him, and he just strolls toward town. You know, these markets and bazaars, they're the true heart of the city. This isn't just a place of quick, noisy commerce. It's a central, shared space where people from all walks of life just naturally gather. You can hear the wooden carts rolling gently over the stones as merchants open their colorful shops, quietly welcoming the day. Let's just take a moment to really absorb the incredible sensory experience here. Imagine the deeply comforting aroma of warm loaves of bread, golden crests just pulled from the oven by the local baker. And then, the scent gently shifts to sweet spices brought by traveling merchants. We're talking rich cinnamon, cloves, and saffron. If you look around, you'll see woven baskets just overflowing with plump olives, dates, and sweet figs. And moving so softly in the morning breeze are these rich silk fabrics from Persia, glowing in deep blues and bright, beautiful reds. It's a vibrant feast for the senses, but a profoundly calm one. As Yusuf continues his slow walk, he passes an absolutely essential fixture of everyday Ottoman life, the neighborhood coffee house. This wasn't just a shop to grab a quick drink. It was a vital public space, flourishing right alongside the mosque and the home as a core element of everyday socialization. Here, Yusuf pauses to watch a coffee seller slowly, carefully pours steaming, rich coffee into tiny cups. Friends are gathered around, speaking softly about their families, the weather, and the slow trickle of news arriving from distant cities. You see, serving this coffee was this mesmerizing, unhurried art form. It involved a highly choreographed sequence. First, the beans are patiently ground in a hand-cranked dermen, which is a small mill. Then the coffee is brewed in a metal kettle called a gyum. The delicate little cup is then seated in a beautiful, decorative metal holder called a zarf. That way it doesn't burn your fingers. And finally, it's presented to the guest on a delicate silk macrame spread. It literally turns a simple morning drink into a true, beautiful ceremony of hospitality. And that sensory immersion, it didn't end with the taste of the coffee. Oh no, the atmosphere itself was carefully crafted for these gatherings. Delicate rose water was often poured for guests from a crystal gulab dan, a very special traditional flask. Meanwhile, the sweet, calming vapors of agalwood and amber would drift through the air from a buhurdan, which is a traditional censer holding warm embers. These delicate, lingering smells really deepen the relaxation and connection of the entire community. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how perfectly this historical sketch captures that exact mood. Just look at this open-air coffee house right on the Bosphorus. Notice how the men are gathered, sitting comfortably, just engaging in quiet, deep conversation. Coffee houses exactly like this were the absolute center of public opinion. It was a safe, relaxing space where men could gather to quietly discuss the world and just connect with their neighbors. Of course, not everyone had the time for a long, lingering sit every single morning. For those on a slightly quicker rhythm, there was something called the koltuk kafesi. This translates roughly to an armchair or inner arm coffee house, basically a makeshift coffee bar. They were often tucked quietly at the back of a shop, sort of hidden away from the main street. It provided this brief, peaceful moment of pause where someone could enjoy a quick standing coffee, maybe leaning gently against a counter before continuing their day's labor. Leaving the faint smell of coffee behind, Yusuf walks a few streets over into the artisan quarter. And here, the quiet, rhythmic tap of the coppersmith's hammer fills the cool air. It's a steady, peaceful sound. Craftsmen sit quietly outside their workshops, patiently shaping simple metals into incredible works of art. Nothing is rushed. Every single strike of the small hammer against the polished metal is deliberate, focused, and masterful. Now, these beautiful creations didn't just happen by accident. They were nurtured by a remarkable institution known as the Ehli Hiref. Think of it as an elite craftsmen's organization that functioned as an incredible school for literally every branch of Ottoman art and metalwork. It ensured that the master craftsmen possessed the immense patience and the technical skill required to shape every single bowl, tray, and handle entirely by hand. And the materials they worked with? Simply stunning. Yusuf is actually looking for some fine handles for a wooden chest he's building, so he warmly greets an elderly metalworker to examine pieces made from polished copper and brass. But these artisans, they also worked with tambak, which is this brilliant, shining blend of copper and zinc, as well as bronze, silver, and gold. You can just imagine the beautiful visual gleam of these metals catching that soft morning sun. Yusuf's unhurried purchase is deeply rooted in something called the esnaf. The esnaf was the Ottoman guild system. It provided economic structure, sure, but more importantly, it gave a profound sense of identity and pride to the handicraft producers and merchants. The esnaf literally wove the community together through shared tools, shared workspaces, and really deep, enduring social ties. You'll notice Yusuf and the craftsmen speak kindly for several minutes before any money even changes hands. So the crucial point is this. Business in the Ottoman marketplace is built entirely on trust, friendship, and respect. There is absolutely no pressure to buy quickly. In this deeply connected community, nothing is wasted, and every single transaction relies on a very firm foundation of mutual community trust. To make sure this peaceful harmony was always maintained, the markets had an overseer known as the muktasib. As midday slowly approaches and the market swells with traveling merchants and camels carrying goods from distant lands, the muktasib is there. Sometimes observing quietly from a raised wooden stand called a dikah, he makes sure that all public business is conducted honestly, ethically, and completely fairly according to the law. Because of this structure and this profound mutual respect, the city maintained a truly beautiful auditory balance. If you listen closely, you can hear distant Christian neighborhoods ringing their church bells, and the sound blends seamlessly with nearby mosques echoing the gentle call to prayer. It's a wonderful testament to a harmonious society, really reflecting the tolerant, spiritual economy of the Ottoman Empire, where very diverse communities shared the exact same spaces. And this brilliantly illustrates the real essence of our journey today. Different languages, different beliefs, and different traditions were quietly, gently brought together by the simple act of everyday life. The town feels incredibly alive, yet it is never chaotic. It is a place where everyone knows one another, and everyone belongs, just sharing the cobblestone streets in peace. The warm sun now stands high above the town, and our peaceful morning has gently passed. I want to leave you with a rather beautiful, traditional Turkish saying, promising order to global affairs from the coffeehouse bench. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What if we all took a quiet moment each day to simply sit down, have a coffee, and connect with our neighbors to solve the world's problems? Thank you for taking this relaxing stroll through history with me today. Sleep well, keep learning.
Chapter 4. Inside an Ottoman family home.
Let's just take a nice, deep breath and step gently into the quiet past with tonight's explainer. We're going to explore the steady, peaceful rhythm of everyday Ottoman life.
We'll actually kick off our journey right as the busy marketplace slowly starts to quiet down, and the local craftsmen are pausing for a short, well-earned rest. Just imagine the mellow afternoon light touching the walls of these humble homes. The intense heat of midday is finally passing, and the whole town's pace is settling into this steady, measured calm. Shopkeepers are gently saying goodbye to their final morning customers, and the cobblestones, they're still warm as the shadows just begin to stretch out. It's a really beautiful moment of transition, kind of like a collective exhale before the evening truly begins.
And if you pay attention, you'll notice how the cool breeze carries these calming, earthy scents right through the narrow streets as Yusuf, our guide for this journey, carefully makes his way home. You've got the warm, inviting aroma of fresh bread rising slowly in the baker's ovens, and that's mingling with the really delicate fragrance of blooming rose gardens. Add to that the rich scent of warm wood drifting over from nearby carpenters' workshops, and you'll literally have this deeply comforting, grounded atmosphere guiding him right to his front door.
So, Yusuf's wooden house stands on a quiet street lined with these ancient olive trees, their leaves just shimmering softly in the hushed breeze. Now, what's wonderfully clever about this specific architecture is how the upper floor actually stretches slightly out over the narrow road below. And that isn't just for show. It ingeniously creates a natural cooling system. It ensures that the interior remains a fresh, serene haven from the warm sun, practically inviting the gentle breeze into every single room.
As we step inside, we immediately observe the very first custom of the Ottoman household. Yusuf removes his sandals before entering, stepping softly onto the beautiful, soft woven carpets that cover the wooden floors. This simple, quiet act is actually a profound transition. It's really about leaving the dust, the commerce, and the noise of the outside world firmly behind. You are stepping into a physical and mental sanctuary of cleanliness, respect, and just profound calm.
Looking around the interior of the home, you'll instantly notice everything is kept perfectly clean and absolutely every single object has its designated place of rest. The whole arrangement is wonderfully simple, yet beautifully purposeful. You've got these colorful embroidered cushions resting comfortably along the walls, acting as the primary seating. Low wooden tables stand ready for the afternoon meal. Up above, delicate copper lamps hang quietly from the ceiling, while carefully painted ceramic bowls are displayed so neatly on the shelves. It's a space totally designed for comfort and function, completely free from any stressful clutter.
Now, as we observe the family's daily routines, the slow, methodical pace of life indoors really becomes clear. Each patient stitch of brightly colored silk tells its own quiet story. You see, the grandmother sits in a warm corner, peacefully spinning wool into fine thread. Nearby, Yusuf's younger sisters are quietly practicing their silk embroidery, their careful hands creating these beautiful floral patterns. These aren't just rushed chores, they're part of a tender, steady rhythm of creation that brings a really calm, meditative focus to the late afternoon.
Stepping just outside the main living quarters, the family finds peaceful comfort beneath a large, leafy fig tree during the hottest, sleepiest hours of the day. This small, shaded courtyard sanctuary is actually a vital part of the Ottoman home. It seamlessly blends the indoors with the outdoors, providing a totally private, secure haven of cool air and soft shadows. And it is exactly here where the family often gathers to rest, recharge, and just enjoy the absolute stillness of the afternoon.
Notice how this outdoor space really engages and soothes the senses? These simple clay pots lining the stone walls fill the warm afternoon sunlight with incredibly soothing fragrances. You have fresh mint, sweet basil, parsley, and fragrant rosemary just thriving in the sun. The scent of these sweet herbs sways in the calm breath of the afternoon, mingling beautifully with the earthy smell of the cool stone. It's essentially a natural, living perfume that instantly calms the mind and grounds the spirit.
And right near those fragrant herbs, a small stone fountain gently trickles. The cool water fills the air with a calming sound, providing the absolute perfect serene backdrop as the family gathers to unwind. This slow lullaby of gentle splashes combines flawlessly with the scent of the herbs and the shade of the fig tree to create an atmosphere of deep, restorative peace. It's just a beautifully crafted environment, purposefully designed to soothe the soul after a long morning's labor.
As the day progresses, the family comes together. And the crucial thing here is that there's absolutely no rushing. There is only quiet conversation, soft laughter, and these lovely moments of peaceful silence as they share this nourishing food. The The afternoon meal is simple but deeply satisfying. We're talking warm lentil soup simmering with fragrant herbs, fresh flatbread, bowls of olives and cheese, grilled vegetables, and sweet figs picked that very morning. These meals are unhurried, gentle ceremonies really, meant to anchor the family together in gratitude.
As the meal wraps up, the evening chores begin with this steady, unhurried grace. After Yusuf helps his father repair an old wooden chair, and the clean linen is neatly folded by his sisters, chores naturally transition into shared stories. The grandmother, bathed in the soft, fading glow of the room, starts sharing vibrant memories of life many years ago. She talks of traveling merchants, bustling festivals, and long, peaceful summers spent beneath that exact same brilliant blue sky.
The younger children, of course, listen closely as the fading afternoon transforms these gentle historical memories into lifelong lessons. Through these quiet stories, the kids are taught the absolute core values of their society. They learn all about the critical importance of kindness, the unbreakable bonds of family, the true dignity of hard work, and deep respect for their elders and their community. It is a subtle, really beautiful education woven seamlessly into the comforting fabric of their daily life.
Meanwhile, just outside the walls of the home, the streets remain wonderfully calm as neighbors exchange friendly greetings and a donkey slowly carries baskets of fresh fruit through the neighborhood. Children are out playing simple games beneath the shade of tall trees, their laughter just a faint breeze. The peaceful rhythm of daily life continues in perfect harmony, reflecting the steady pulse of a community functioning with a calm, collective respect for the passing hours and, of course, for one another.
As the afternoon starts to wane, long, mellow shadows begin to stretch all across the wooden floor. Golden sunlight fills every single room of the house, bouncing softly off the woven carpets. The light is so soft, wrapping the world in this soothing, amber embrace. This transition from day to night isn't sudden or jarring at all. It's a slow, graceful fading of light that gently signals to the entire household that it is finally time to prepare for rest and reflection.
Now, check out this incredibly unique historical artifact they used to prepare their evening coffee, roasting the beans slowly over the fire to embrace the night. These long-handled iron pans were so cleverly designed so the coffee could be roasted right over the hearth while keeping everyone's hands perfectly safe from the heat. This slow, deliberate process of preparing coffee was a cherished aesthetic ritual that really helped them transition peacefully into the evening.
So the family prepares for another quiet evening together, incredibly secure in their comforting routines. The rhythmic, soothing sound of that coffee roasting blends perfectly with the quiet hum of the fading twilight. Copper lamps are gently lit, casting these warm, steady halos of light against the walls. The whole house is enveloped in a cozy warmth, and the rich, dark aroma of the coffee completely fills the room, inviting quiet reflection, calm conversation, and a really deep sense of belonging.
For ordinary people in the Ottoman Empire, these unhurried routines created a profound sanctuary from the outside world. As this beautiful quote reminds us, home is far more than a place to sleep. It is a place of comfort, safety, tradition, and love. The careful arrangement of the home, the shared meals, the storytelling, the slow roasting of the coffee, all of this built a truly beautiful foundation of deep, familial love and enduring peace.
The day's work is entirely done. The gentle evening breeze moves through the open windows, rustling the linen curtains in a tender wave. As the lantern light flickers softly against the walls, sleep finally settles over the peaceful home. The soft murmur of quiet prayers and low whispers eventually fades into absolute silence. Wrapped in the warmth of woven blankets and the immense safety of their sanctuary, the family rests, and the world outside grows wonderfully, perfectly still.
As our journey through everyday Ottoman life quietly concludes, I'd like to ask, what simple, quiet traditions bring peace to your own home? I'll leave you with this final, restful thought, really hoping tonight's explainer brings a moment of deep tranquility to your evening before you drift away. Thank you so much for joining me on this peaceful journey into...
Welcome to tonight's relaxing explainer. We're going to gently step right into the everyday culinary lives of ordinary people in the Ottoman Empire. I'm really glad you're here with us. We're going to let the soothing, beautifully structured history of daily life guide us to a place of rest. So, get completely comfortable and let's begin. Take a deep breath and let your thoughts settle. As our quote says, tonight we gently step into the past, to a place the world has merely forgotten, where people lived quietly and time moved gently. We're going to explore how the rhythm of daily life hummed like a calm, steady melody centuries ago.
Because, far away from the grand palaces and the bustling imperial courts, the true heartbeat of the empire was actually found in the simple, quiet routines of its ordinary people.
Our journey begins in the early hours of the morning. The soothing glow of the neighborhood baker's oven offers a warm, really inviting start to the day. For most ordinary people back then, the day didn't begin with a frantic rush, but with a slow, deliberate unfolding of tasks, all anchored by that comforting, earthy smell of baking bread.
Part 1. The Gentle Ottoman Morning.
This is where the simple, essential ingredients of the morning begin to take shape. The baker's hands work the dough with a tender, practiced touch. Flour dusts the air, catching the mellow rays of the rising sun. Round loaves with golden crusts rise slowly in the warm air. Outside in the gardens, herbs like thyme, mint, and sage are waking up under the calm sun. And alongside all this, small cups of fragrant, warming tea are sipped with a tender ease. It sets such a peaceful pace for the hours ahead.
Part 2. Harvest of the Market. The village bazaar opens with a whisper. Instead of a chaotic rush, it's really a poetic harvest of vivid produce offering both calm beauty and simple nourishment. Vendors arrange their goods in neat rows. Imagine a young man, let's call him Yusuf, visiting the market on his way home from the workshop. He walks past pale cucumbers, deep red tomatoes, and beautifully striped aubergines catching the tender morning light. He carefully picks up a small basket of soft, ripe figs, sweet grapes, and a handful of almonds to treat his younger sisters. You can almost smell the faint scent of spices and fresh herbs mingling in the air. Neighbors exchange quiet smiles and steady, respectful bargains. Nearby, honey drips softly from delicate spoons, flowing literally like liquid gold from clay pots. It's a sensory experience that is incredibly rich, yet completely unhurried.
Part 3. Simmering the Evening Meal.
As the mellow afternoon sun begins to soften, we step into the soothing warmth of the kitchen. Cooking here is a highly methodical, loving process. Yusuf's mother begins preparing the evening meal by lighting a small clay stove. You can hear the dry olive wood crackling gently as the fire slowly grows. A large, heavy copper pot is placed above the flames. Into the pot go fresh lentils, chickpeas, onions, garlic, and rice. Finally, fragrant herbs like mint and parsley are stirred in, creating this beautifully slow dance of simmering ingredients.
The comforting aroma of the simmering soup fills the home, quietly anticipating the family's return. And nearby, we find the bread that was baked early this morning. It rests peacefully beneath a clean linen cloth. Its golden crust is protecting a center that remains incredibly warm and soft, just waiting to be shared.
Part 4. Gathering at the Table.
So, what did a daily meal look like? Well, the rhythm of their diet was wonderfully simple. Everyday food was seasonal and very vegetable heavy. Alongside a hearty soup, you'd find small bowls of olives, white cheese, cucumbers, fresh mint, and creamy yogurt waiting quietly on a low wooden table. Meat wasn't something they ate every day. It was carefully reserved for Fridays, religious holidays, or special celebrations, perhaps served alongside some delicate sweet pastries filled with honey and nuts. But for a normal evening, simple vegetables, beans, rice, and freshly torn flatbread provided absolutely everything a family needed.
As the sun slowly lowers, the family gathers. No one ever eats alone. Everyone waits until all have safely arrived. Yusuf's father quietly offers words of gratitude. The warm soup is poured into simple ceramic bowls, and the fresh bread is passed slowly from hand to hand. The children laugh softly with excitement over the fresh fruit Yusuf brought them, and grandmother shares another old story from her youth. In these humble homes, riches were not measured by gold. They were measured by these exact moments, by full tables, loving families, kind neighbors, and another peaceful day lived with gratitude.
Part 5. Coffee, tea, and rest.
After the dinner dishes are cleared with tender care, the town becomes peaceful once again, and the deeply comforting rituals of hot beverages begin. Tea was a constant, gentle companion to the evening's quiet stories, with steam rising in tender spirals from small clay cups. But the Ottomans also cultivated a profoundly intricate and aesthetic culture around coffee, bound by beautiful protocols.
To prepare this treasured drink, they used tools crafted with incredible care and fine labor. They used handcrafted iron coffee roasting pans, specifically designed with long handles to keep the person's hands comfortably away from the fire. Some were even foldable in the middle, featuring a stirring spoon connected by a chain. It was a methodical process, slowly roasting the coffee beans over the quiet crackle of a fire, letting those rich, mellow scents drift right into the evening air.
For larger gatherings in the evening, perhaps in a mellow local coffeehouse, they would use a cylindrical roaster. These featured a wooden turning handle, allowing the cylinder to be turned steadily over the hearth. It's a slow, rhythmic, and almost hypnotic motion that was absolutely perfect for settling into the night. Eventually, the distant sounds of merchants closing their shops completely fade away. The lanterns dim slightly, casting warm halos in quiet rooms, and the first evening stars softly appear above the rooftops. The city exhales, wrapped in the embrace of a patient, still night. The day's simple, nourishing routines are complete.
As we close tonight's explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. As the distant sounds of your own day fade away, can we find our own peace and comfort in the simple, everyday routines of a shared meal? Thank you for joining me on this relaxing journey into the past. May these quiet historical moments bring you a deeply peaceful rest tonight.
Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to take a deep breath, step far away from our modern hustle, and explore the peaceful, everyday rhythm of ordinary people and craftsmen in the Ottoman Empire. Let's just gently drift back in time to this beautifully structured world and experience a day in the life of a much quieter era.
Picture this. A soft, golden light slowly fills the narrow stone streets of an Ottoman town. The morning sun is just rising, and the marketplace is getting busy, but everything moves at a gentle, unhurried pace. You can hear the sound of wooden carts rolling quietly over the roads, and somewhere nearby, a distant fountain continues its peaceful, endless song.
Section 1. The Craftsman's Quiet Workshop.
Stepping inside a local shop, the warm air is just filled with the rich scent of freshly cut wood and the steady, rhythmic sounds of hand tools. The level of specialization among these Damascene woodworkers is honestly incredible. Take a man named Yusuf, for example. He's a Najjar, or a carpenter, and he's patiently carving these beautiful chests from deep, dark walnut wood. Every chisel, every carving knife has been carefully sharpened. Then you have the Kabakabi. This artisan specializes entirely in making wooden clogs for the bathhouses. Others carve simple, beautiful combs from apricot wood, filling the whole shop with a really sweet fragrance. And finally, the Sadovji carefully places shimmering mother-of-pearl into the excavated wood. There are absolutely no machines here. It's just years and years of skill passed down from generation to generation.
And this amazing patience, it extends to other materials too. Nearby, an Erzincan coppersmith is gently shaping a shining tray from raw earth and copper. Now, to put this into perspective, it takes a master craftsman 10 to 15 years of quiet apprenticeship just to learn how to carve these specially designed shapes using a single pen. You hear hundreds of light, steady hammer taps echoing softly through the street. It's not loud, it's not harsh, it's just a steady rhythm, kind of like the heartbeat of the town itself.
Section 2. The Brotherhood of Tradesmen.
So you might be wondering, how did they keep everything so calm and balanced? Well, they used a brilliant system called the Giddick. This was an exclusive license to practice a trade in a specific area. It was a very strictly controlled economy, meaning you couldn't just open a shop wherever you wanted and disrupt the balance. This prevented all that rushed, stressful competition we see today, keeping the town's atmosphere profoundly peaceful and making sure there was enough for everyone. A person's journey within this brotherhood was incredibly slow and deliberate. There was no rushing to the top here. After elementary school, a young person started as a yeet, basically just proving their worth, before moving up to a chirak, or apprentice. The master would teach the intricacies of the art slowly over 3 long years. Only when they were truly ready did they progress to a kalfa, and then finally an usta, or master craftsman. And when a craftsman finally did pass his examinations, which tested both his physical skill and his moral ethics, they didn't celebrate with loud fanfare. Instead, there was this very quiet, dignified initiation ceremony. The new master would put on a waistcloth, known as a peshtimal. This simple rite of the apron signified his deep acceptance into the fraternity and the absolute mastery of his craft. The word aki literally translates to my brother in Arabic, and this wasn't just some casual business guild. It was a profound support system. If a tradesman fell ill, or if heaven forbid his shop caught fire, the Brotherhood had an emergency aid fund ready to go. They provided interest-free loans and donations to support him. They really looked out for one another, ensuring that nobody in their community had to face hardship alone.
Section 3. Inside the Grand Bazaar.
Let's step away from the local workshops for a moment and wander into the vast, cool, covered stone corridors of Istanbul's Grand Bazaar.
This sprawling market, with its core built way back in 1455, was this beautifully organized maze. You could walk quietly through the Javert Bedtime, filled with glittering jewels kept securely in cabinets, or you could wander into the Sandal Bedtime, where these incredibly rich threads the color of sandalwood were traded. And then there was the Sahaflar Charshis, where the amazing scent of old paper and ancient books just completely filled the air.
The actual physical setup of this market was fascinating. There were no glowing signs, no loud advertising, no big modern storefronts. Merchants simply sat on wooden divans beside small open stalls called dolaps. These were tiny, measuring just 6 by 8 feet. At the end of the day, there were no heavy metal shutters crashing down. The stalls were just simply closed with heavy, quiet drapes.
A transaction here was never, ever rushed. If you wanted to buy a cut of blue silk, or maybe a beautiful wooden chest from a carpenter like Yusuf, you as the client would sit down on the wooden divan right in front of the dealer. You'd talk softly, and you'd share a small cup of dark, warm Turkish coffee or tea together. It was a relaxed, deeply human interaction.
As we wander a bit further, we pass the shoe market, which actually operated under some incredibly specific rules. Ottoman sumptuary laws dictated clothing colors for different communities. So stacked high on these wooden shelves, you'd see a perfectly silent, highly organized rainbow of hand-stitched leather shoes. There were yellow shoes for Muslims, blue for Greek Orthodox, black for Jews, and red for Armenians.
Now, you might be wondering, where did everyone eat? Curiously enough, the Grand Bazaar had absolutely no loud, bustling restaurants. Instead, the craftsmen and merchants brought their lunches from home in a simple, stacked metal food box called a sefertas. They would eat modest, quiet meals right at their stalls, or maybe they grab a simple, sweet pudding from a small, solitary wooden kiosk right in the middle of the road.
Section 4. Rest at the Caravanserai. As the afternoon deepens, our journey takes us out onto the long, dusty desert roads. Traveling merchants arrived here from all over, some crossing the deserts of Arabia, others sailing the Mediterranean Sea. Along these major trade routes, large stone inns called caravanserais were built, and they were placed exactly 30 to 40 kilometers apart. Why? Because that was the exact distance a caravan of camels could slowly and steadily travel in a single day before they needed to stop and rest.
These massive, sheltering stone inns were a real testament to the hospitality of the era. They were very often funded by a waqf, which is a protected charitable endowment. This meant that the revenues collected from those bustling urban markets were actually used to provide absolutely free lodging, food, and safety for tired travelers way out in the rugged countryside.
The famous 14th century traveler Ibn Battuta described these havens perfectly. Whether they were called a funduk, a khan, or a caravanserai, they provided this amazing universal comfort. Inside those thick stone walls, a merchant who had literally just crossed deserts or sailed seas could finally close his eyes, completely at peace, knowing his goods were safe and his long journey was paused for the night.
Section 5. Evening in the Empire. The warm sunlight slowly disappears behind the rooftops. The craftsmen start cleaning their serene workshops. Yusuf the carpenter gently runs his hand across his nearly finished wooden chest, knowing another family will treasure it for years. The fragrant wood shavings are swept from the floors. Heavy steel and copper tools are polished and put neatly away into leather pouches. The rich spices and fine silks are packed up, and one by one, the heavy wooden doors slowly close. Remember, the Ottoman Empire connected 3 massive continents: Europe, Asia, and Africa. And throughout the day, traveling merchants from all these distant lands mingled right here. You'd have strangers speaking Arabic, Turkish, Greek, Persian, Armenian, and Italian, all trading side by side. But despite coming from such distant places, business brought them together peacefully. Coins changed hands, goods were exchanged, and friendships were quietly formed under the setting sun. The town prepares for another peaceful evening.
The peaceful, deliberate rhythm of these Ottoman craftsmen is just such a stark contrast to our modern world. As the distant fountain continues its peaceful song and we step back into our own fast-paced lives, ask yourself, how might you invite just a little bit of that patient, unhurried rhythm into your day tomorrow? Thank you for joining me on this explainer.
Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking the highly organized, socially conscious, and vastly interconnected economic engine of the Ottoman Empire.
We know this empire dominated global trade for centuries, right? But they didn't do it using the cutthroat free market tactics we're so used to today. Instead, they built this deeply structured society where community and craft meant literally everything.
So how exactly do you manage a global economy without modern capitalism? Let's dive right into this. We often think global economies absolutely require hyper-competition and constant ruthless expansion just to survive. But the Ottomans, they operated on a completely different frequency. They engineered a controlled economy specifically designed to prevent unemployment, avoid scarcity, and maintain a rigorous social balance.
Here's the agenda for our spatial journey today. First, the highways of empire. Second, Istanbul's Grand Bazaar. Third, the merchants' guilds. Fourth, the ranks of the artisans. And finally, the end of the traditional economy. Let's get into it.
Section 1. The Highways of Empire. Let's start our journey out on the open road by looking at the literal circulatory system of Ottoman trade.
Long before airplanes and massive shipping hubs, wealth moved on the backs of pack animals across some pretty harsh terrains. The empire relied heavily on the caravanserai. This was essentially a highly secure hotel, warehouse, and truck stop all rolled into one. Derived from the Persian words for caravan and palace, these massive structures were placed strategically along trade routes. You'd see this giant protected entrance opening up into a central courtyard, offering a true sanctuary for weary merchants traversing the globe.
And this brilliantly illustrates the vast, recognizable scale of this infrastructure. The legendary 14th century explorer Ibn Battuta recognized this standardized system of hospitality and noted that it stretched all the way from the Islamic world to China. Whether you were up in the Anatolian highlands or crossing into Central Asia, you knew exactly what to expect when you saw those monumental brick and stone walls on the horizon.
You know, these weren't just simple rest stops. They were rigorous hubs funded by religious endowments, or waqf, ensuring every single traveler had access to water, safety, and spiritual facilities. A merchant could safely store his goods, feed his camels, wash up in the hammam, and pray in the central mosque before hitting the road again. It was a complete self-sustaining ecosystem. Moving on to Section 2, Istanbul's Grand Bazaar. Now let's head into the city and see where all those goods traveling the long highways finally met the consumer.
Now, rather than developing organically over time, this marketplace was a deliberate, highly secure project. Right after the conquest of Constantinople, Sultan Mehmed II ordered the construction of the Bedtime of Gems. It was essentially a massive stone safe with heavily guarded gates built specifically to jumpstart the city's economy and protect the trade of luxury goods arriving from across 3 continents. To put its massive scale into perspective, by 1638, the famous Turkish traveler Evliya Çelebi documented 3,000 shops bustling within this covered labyrinth. 3,000! The market had practically swallowed up the surrounding caravanserais and streets, becoming this sprawling, covered economic universe right in the middle of Istanbul.
What's really fascinating here is the stark contrast between our modern, flashy shopping experiences and the intimate Ottoman dole-up stall. There were no bright neon signs or massive window displays. A merchant just occupied a tiny 6 to 8 foot wooden space with the most precious goods actually hidden away in cabinets. You didn't just grab an item and rush to a cash register. You sat down on a divan, the merchant offered you Turkish coffee or tea, and you had a relaxed, personal conversation before ever making a deal.
Far from the chaotic bazaar of Western stereotypes, this was a fiercely regulated environment. Everything from your shop's location to the color of your shoes was standardized by sumptuary laws. Trades were grouped by street, so all the leather workers were in one place, jewelers in another. And theft? Practically non-existent. The gates locked at night with guards patrolling. A theft of gold coins in 1591 actually shocked the entire city because it was just that rare. Also, fun fact, there were no restaurants inside. Merchants simply brought a lunchbox, a sefertis, to eat at their stalls.
All right, Section 3, the Merchant Guilds. Let's meet the people who actually manage these strict rules. The bazaar definitely did not just run itself.
See, you couldn't simply open a shop to compete with your neighbor. You needed a gedik. This was an early form of a commercial zoning license that prevented overproduction. For example, if there were exactly 200 shoemakers in Istanbul, that number was fixed. You couldn't just open the 201st shop. It actively prevented the ruthless commercial competition we see today, guaranteeing every tradesman a fair share of the market to survive.
Crucially, these Ahi brotherhoods acted as a powerful social safety net, providing early forms of disability insurance and strict quality control. They were heavily influenced by Sufi spiritual traditions, calling each other Ahi, meaning my brother. If your shop burned down or you fell ill, the guild's emergency fund provided you with interest-free loans and a salary. They ate together, celebrated together, and held each other to incredibly high moral and professional standards.
Which brings us to Section 4, Ranks of the Artisans. Let's zoom all the way down to the micro level, stepping into the workshops to see how an individual climbed the ranks in this economy.
Mastering a craft was a heavily structured journey. You had to prove your worth, skill, and moral character at every single step. You started as a young candidate, proving you were worthy of the Brotherhood. Then, you spent years as an apprentice, before eventually moving up to a journeyman. Only after decades of strict education in both your craft and your ethical conduct could you finally be named a master craftsman.
And earning that title of master wasn't just a business achievement. It was a deeply spiritual community celebration centered around receiving the symbolic tradesman's apron. It was a true rite of passage where you took a solemn oath in front of the guild elders to uphold the integrity of your profession.
This intense specialization created incredibly vibrant artisan communities. Take the woodworkers of late Ottoman Damascus, for instance. You had the Ulabi making beautiful wooden sweetmeat boxes for weddings, right alongside the Mashitati carving affordable apricot wood combs. And for the luxury market, the Sanadiki meticulously engraved stunning mother-of-pearl chests. Every single level of society's needs was met by a highly specialized craftsman. And when the workday was done, the rhythm of the city shifted beautifully. The golden afternoon slowly fades into evening, long shadows stretch across the quiet streets. The warm air begins to cool, and a gentle breeze carries the scent of jasmine flowers through the neighborhood. The busy marketplace grows silent as shopkeepers carefully close their wooden doors. The sound of hammers and saws slowly disappears. For many families, this is the most peaceful time of the day. The distant call to prayer gently echoes across the town. Its calm melody drips over rooftops, gardens, and narrow stone streets. An artisan, let's call him Yusuf, quietly washes his hands and face with cool water. He carefully straightens his simple linen robe, then begins walking toward the neighborhood mosque. The streets are calm, neighbors greet one another with warm smiles. The mosque stands quietly at the center of the town, its beautiful stone walls glowing beneath the golden evening light. Inside, the atmosphere is peaceful. Soft sunlight enters through colorful glass windows. People sit quietly, some pray, others simply rest. There is no loud conversation, only silence, respect, and quiet reflection. After prayer, friends exchange gentle greetings. A merchant offers fresh dates to an elderly traveler. A young boy helps an old man carry a heavy basket. Simple acts of kindness are just part of everyday life. As Yusuf leaves the mosque, the first stars slowly appear above the town. Oil lamps are lit along the streets. Families begin gathering inside their homes, and the smell of freshly prepared dinners, fresh bread, warm soup, sweet tea, fills the evening air. The Ottoman town enjoys another peaceful evening, a moment of calm shared by every family beneath the same beautiful evening sky. It really highlights the deep, peaceful community ties that held this entire economic engine together.
Now, for Section 5, the end of the traditional economy. As we know, empires inevitably change. So let's explore how this centuries-old system eventually unraveled.
Through a combination of natural disasters, modernizing liberal economic reforms, and political maneuvering, the tightly controlled guild system was finally dismantled in the early 20th century. Beginning with the Tanzimat reforms in 1839, the empire began adopting Western free market policies. This slowly starved the traditional guilds of the power. Add in a devastating earthquake in 1894 that physically shrank the Grand Bazaar, and finally, the political abolition of the guilds in 1909 by the ruling Young Turks, who viewed the tradesmen as a political threat. The era of the Ahi brotherhoods and that quiet, structured way of life had come to a close.
It leaves us with a fascinating final thought for this explainer. When we look at our modern gig economy, where independent contractors often lack basic safety nets, the Ottoman system of emergency funds, guaranteed market shares, and deep community solidarity feels surprisingly progressive. It makes you wonder, in our modern pursuit of endless growth and total market freedom, what valuable lessons about community and security might we have left behind in the Ottoman Bazaar?
Welcome to this explainer. Tonight, we're taking a step back from our fast-paced modern world to unpack something really special: how ordinary craftspeople and organized guilds quietly built the immense wealth of the Ottoman Empire. We're going to look past the usual history book headlines of epic battles and instead uncover the bustling, highly structured, and deeply communal world of the artisans who shaped one of history's longest-lasting empires. We so often focus on the sultans and the grand architecture, right? But today, we're looking at the everyday economic engine that actually kept the empire running day to day. We're talking about the shoemakers, the woodturners, the coppersmiths. Their world was this incredibly tight-knit ecosystem that governed not just what they sold, but how they lived, how they celebrated after a long week's work, and how they supported one another. It all started way back in the 13th century with a group called the Ahis. This was a completely fascinating network of craftsmen that functioned as both a professional guild and a religious fraternity. They were so deeply influential that their leaders even helped select the very first Ottoman sultans. But they weren't just about making money. The Ahis preached solidarity, virtue, and shared philosophy. They established charities, educated the youth, and built this invisible network of brotherhood that sprawled across quiet villages and bustling cities alike. Let's dive right into Section 1, a controlled Ottoman economy. To really understand the Ottoman world, you have to realize that it was the absolute opposite of the stressful, free-for-all capitalism we're used to today. Unlike modern markets where anyone can just open a shop anywhere and compete ruthlessly, the Ottomans used the gedik system. A gedik was an exclusive license that strictly dictated exactly where and how you could do business. And the whole goal here? To prevent scarcity, avoid brutal competition, and make sure no one ever faced unemployment. The number of shops was fixed, and everything was kept beautifully in balance. To give you a sense of just how strictly this was managed, think about this. In the mid-17th century, Istanbul had exactly 200 shoemakers. That was it. Not 201, just 200. If you were a shoemaker in a specific district, you couldn't just casually pack up and move your shop down the road without state permission. New shops couldn't open on a whim. The right to trade was carefully handed down, which meant you always knew your livelihood was secure. Now, climbing the ranks in this system was a slow, rigorous, and really meaningful lifelong process. You started as a Yeet, basically a candidate who had to prove they were worthy. Over the years, you'd slowly become an apprentice, then a journeyman, and finally a master craftsman, or Usta. And this progression was celebrated with deeply symbolic initiation ceremonies, where you'd be handed an apron. It was a lifelong commitment to your craft and to your neighbors. Moving on to Section 2, caravanserais, global trade hubs. Once these master craftsmen actually finished their goods, those products entered a massive, sweeping supply chain anchored by beautiful structures called caravanserais. Picture these as grand, fortified trading posts right in the heart of major cities. They offered traveling merchants a safe, peaceful haven. They had absolutely everything you could need: secure storage for precious cargo, courtyard fountains with gently running water, warm public bathhouses, elevated mosques for quiet prayer, and shops to restock. They were these wonderful, buzzing intersections of global travel and local craft. Let's explore Section 3, inside the Grand Bazaar. The absolute epicenter of all this trade, the true crown jewel, was the legendary Grand Bazaar in Istanbul. Just look at these numbers for a second. This place was a behemoth. By the 17th century, it was unrivaled anywhere in Europe, covering over 30,000 square meters, with 61 covered streets and more than 4,000 individual shops. It was quite literally a city within a city, and widely considered one of the world's first true shopping malls. But contrast this with how chaotic shopping can be today. Inside the bazaar, there were no loud advertisements, no bright flashing signs. Instead, merchants sat peacefully on wooden divans called dolaps. When you walked up, they'd invite you to sit down. You'd share a warm cup of Turkish coffee or maybe some gently brewed tea, just taking your time in a totally relaxed, unhurried way. For lunch, they ate simply from stacked boxes called sefertas. And this warm, communal vibe extended right out into the town. On certain days, entire guilds and families would go out to the countryside together to celebrate festivals, eat rice, play games, and just enjoy the quiet joy of community after a long week of work. Inside the market, organization was absolutely everything. For security and efficiency, traders were grouped onto specialized streets based entirely on their guild's profession. You had the gold jewelers clustered on one street, the booming silk trade gathered in the sandal bedestan, and all the beautiful woven carpets on another. It meant that if you needed something, you walked down a street completely surrounded by the absolute masters of that single craft. Some of these streets were a feast for the eyes. Take the shoe market, for instance. thousands of shoes displayed on high shelves, but they weren't just random colors. They followed incredibly strict sumptuary laws that dictated shoe color based on your religion. Yellow shoes were for Muslims, blue for Greek Orthodox, black for Jews, and red for Armenians. It was this visually striking, everyday reminder of the empire's diverse yet highly regulated society. Because all this wealth was gathered in one place, security was taken very seriously. Guilds paid for their own trusted guards, and the heavy gates were locked tight every single night. Theft was practically unheard of. In fact, it was so rare that when the Great Heist of 1591 happened, it was a massive scandal. 30,000 gold coins vanished. It shocked the city so much that the entire bazaar locked its doors for 2 whole weeks, until they found the culprit, a young Persian musk seller who had hidden the gold under a floor mat. And that brings us to Section 4, Mastering the Crafts. This huge retail network relied completely on the patient, highly specialized skills of individual craftsmen all across the empire. Let's look at Damascus, for example. The woodworking sector there was incredibly layered. You had the elite artisans crafting these stunning mother-of-pearl chests for weddings. You had others making everyday items like wooden milk jugs and perfume boxes. And at the base of it all, you had the hardworking men who cut the firewood that literally kept the fires of the city burning. And the beautiful thing is, these slow, dedicated crafts are deeply rooted in the region's DNA. Even today, in places like Erzincan in Anatolia, you can find master coppersmiths sitting quietly, carving intricate designs by hand. It's a skill they've perfected only after a grueling 15-year apprenticeship. That profound dedication to craftsmanship has beautifully survived the passing centuries. What's truly amazing to think about is that no craftsman ever stood alone. It was a completely interdependent, caring ecosystem. If you made water pipes, you had to rely on the wood turners. If you made clogs, you bought leather straps from one neighbor and mother of pearl from another. Every single glassmaker and metalworker relied on the charcoal burners. A single change in demand rippled through the whole community, tying everyone's fates together. But as we know, times change. As the Ottoman Empire modernized and the fast-paced global market crept in during the early 20th century, the old ways began to fade. The guilds held a lot of conservative political power, and to break that influence, the ruling Young Turks systematically dismantled the guild system, officially abolishing them by 1913. They were replaced by modern merchant associations, and that slow, deliberate way of doing business came to an end. Which leaves us with a really peaceful, fascinating thought to close on. As we embrace the hyper-fast, highly competitive modern world, we absolutely gained incredible speed and endless choices. But looking back at those Ottoman tradesmen sharing warm tea, protecting their neighbors from hard times, and celebrating evening festivals together, did we lose a vital sense of community and the quiet joy of shared craftsmanship? It's a comforting thought to hold on to as we end our journey tonight. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.
So, usually in this explainer, we dive headfirst into fast-paced facts and figures. But tonight, we're doing something a little different. We're going to slow right down. Based on our rich historical sources, we're stepping into the breathtaking, unhurried world of old Istanbul, right around the year 1550, during the age of Suleiman the Magnificent. It's time for some quiet history for sleep. Just picture it. The last golden light is slowly disappearing beyond the distant hills, and evening is gently settling over the quiet Ottoman town.
I want you to consider the permission this moment gives you to just stop. Seriously, go ahead and let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Let the weight of the whole day go completely soft beneath you. There's literally nowhere you need to be tonight but right here, exploring a warm, unhurried version of a city that, honestly, was one of the largest on Earth at the time. We're talking 500,000 souls, which is bigger than Paris or London back then. But you know, a great city isn't just about its daytime hustle. It's mostly about its evenings. So if you find your attention loosening up, or if the words start to blur as we journey through the past together, just let them. That's exactly what this bedtime history is for.
Imagine looking out over the city from one of its 7 hills. Down below, the terracotta roofs of low timber and stone houses catch the last of the sun, turning this beautiful rose, amber, and dusty gold. And rising right above them are these massive, calming, gray domes, like the magnificent mosque designed by the famous architect Sinan. As the sky turns the color of a ripe apricot, you hear the evening call to prayer begin. A single, unhurried human voice drifts over the rooftops, and it's soon answered by a second and a third, until the entire city just seems to be gently singing itself to sleep.
Down below, the city is responding. A porter sets down his heavy load. A woman on a rooftop pauses her washing.
The day is ending, and the public world is closing its doors. Now, we usually think of the Ottoman Empire as this place of endless roaring bazaars and the bright glint of an expanding empire, right? But the true heart of the evening here is found in the shift from that roaring public sphere to a quiet, unhurried intimacy. The city is literally folding its daytime self away, shop by shop, and turning toward home.
You can actually see this transition perfectly in the very center of commerce. All day, the vaulted stone streets of the Grand Bazaar absolutely roared with the business of half a continent. We're talking silk, wool, amber, spices, the whole shebang. But now, it empties. The shopkeepers pull down their wooden shutters with this soft, rolling clatter that recedes kind of like a tide. An old man sweeps the floor one last time. And even though the noise is completely gone, the rich scents of the day are still lingering in the cooling air. Cinnamon, cardamom, and the dry, comforting sweetness of old wood.
You know, an empire, when you look at it up close, is mostly just people going home. So let's follow an ordinary citizen. We'll call him Yusuf, walking home through streets exactly like this one. His footsteps echo gently along the old stone path. These lanes wind and rise with the hills, and they're barely wide enough for two people to squeeze past each other. The upper stories of the timber houses actually lean out, so their carved wooden balconies almost touch right above your head. The worn stones underfoot, they're still warm from the afternoon sun. And the lane just grows quieter with every single step, almost as though the whole street is breathing slower and slower.
As Yusuf walks, the lighting in the city starts to change. Historically, the transition from daylight to evening in the Ottoman Empire was marked by the really gentle glow of oil lamps. Behind these intricately carved wooden window screens, small flames are being lit. The light slips through the wooden lattice in a scatter of tiny gold points. You can smell just a little wood smoke in the air, and there's this cool breeze carrying the sweet scent of jasmine, cooking onions, lamb, and something a bit sweet. Somewhere off in the distance, a fountain continues its quiet song, and a door closes softly.
Finally, Yusuf reaches his front door. Now, Ottoman homes of this era did something really interesting. They essentially turned their backs on the street. You'd step through a low wooden door set into a high wall, and you'd enter the true heart of the home, which was the enclosed private courtyard. This was just how they built things. The outside was kept very plain and enclosed, but the inside was this beautiful safe haven kept entirely for the family. Just imagine the profound feeling in a space like this. It's like the house is exhaling the day. Out in the courtyard, the broad leaves of a fig tree stand dark against the fading gray light. There's a small lantern hanging right beneath it, and its warm light dances so softly in the evening breeze. Pots of fresh basil and mint are releasing their soothing scents into the mild air, and the stones are giving back all the warmth they soaked up during the day. It's a quiet that is full of people close by. It's unhurried and completely at ease. And if you look up, the sky is deepening into a rich blue, revealing the very first star of the night.
Then, from an upper window, comes the first warm bloom of lamplight. A single oil lamp is lit, and suddenly that wooden lattice just glows gold. You have to remember, before the modern era of electricity, the whole world contracted at night down to just a few warm circles of gold in a soft, endless dark. It made the evenings incredibly intimate. You naturally drew close to where the light was. The dark beyond the lamp? That was simply where the day's work rested until morning.
And right there in that warm light, the family gathers to eat. They sit low to the ground around a large round tray set on a folding stand. Picture the spread in front of them. There's warm flatbread, gently torn and shared by hand. There's slow-cooked lamb and aubergine that's literally as soft as butter, and cool white yogurt. To finish it off, there are sweet meats, ripe figs, and grapes. And what our sources on Ottoman food culture tell us, which I absolutely love, is that it was deeply customary for neighbors to exchange gifts of fresh fruit or sweet pastries, like baklava. These weren't grand, showy displays of wealth. They were just genuine, heartfelt tokens of friendship passed quietly from home to home.
After the food, the tray is cleared away and the family relaxes. The talk is low, easy, comfortable. The grandmother begins telling another story from her youth, old tales of great caravans and merchants arriving from Persia, Venice, and distant India. And every story connects these younger children who are listening in absolute quiet wonder to the generations that came before them. It is, in a way, the original, ancient form of bedtime history. Now here is a truly surprising historical fact from our sources. After the meal, a tiny brass tray might appear, carrying a drink that was entirely new to the city in the 1550s, coffee. It was an absolute marvel at the time. And just down the lane, the very first kavehane, or coffee houses, were opening up. These definitely weren't taverns.
They were places built purely for sitting, talking, listening to storytellers, and sipping this dark, hot, bitter new drink. The soft murmur of easy laughter from the coffee house drifts down the street. It's essentially the sound of a city keeping itself company in the dark. But soon, even the coffee houses will close for the night. The focus shifts back to the gentle winding down of the household. The cups are rinsed and set to dry. The fire inside the stove slowly burns lower and lower. The dishes are carefully washed, and fresh bread is prepped for the morning. The day is being put away with the exact same gentle care as those wooden shutters closing back at the Grand Bazaar.
And this brings us to a fascinating aspect of everyday Ottoman life. There was actually very little permanent furniture. The low divans they used for sitting by day completely transformed by night. Thick mattresses were unrolled from wooden cupboards and just laid upon the floor. Warm, thick quilts were spread over them. The minimalist wooden rooms simply transitioned their purpose. The wooden shutters were drawn against the chill night air, and the house grew dim, close, and incredibly safe. One by one, the lamps of the house are turned down to the smallest embers. And I want to invite you, right now, to feel how your own body lets go when the light is gone and you are safe. Just let your hands uncurl. Let the long muscles of your back soften right into your own mattress. There's absolutely nothing left to do tonight. The doors are shut, the lamps are out, everything that needed doing has been done, or it'll simply wait until the sun returns tomorrow.
As Yusuf closes his eyes, the whole house drifts down towards sleep. In the near dark, you can hear the ambient, rhythmic sounds of the sleeping city. The gentle tick of the cooling house. A cat quietly wandering across the empty marketplace. A dog barking far off in the distance. The wind sighing through the cypress trees up on the hillside. And beneath all of it, the vast, quiet sound of 500,000 people breathing out the day at exactly the same time.
Let's rise gently one last time up above the sleeping roofs to take in the macro view. The sky above old Istanbul is crowded with thick silver stars, wheeling slowly from horizon to horizon. Down below, the Bosphorus Strait lies perfectly still and gleaming. This city sleeps right on the hinge of the earth, between Europe on one side and Asia on the other, and tonight, just as it did 500 years ago, it simply rests, breathes, and waits for morning.
Everything this quiet evening carried. The coffee that reached your table, the stories that bridged continents, all of it began in ordinary, peaceful, lamplit moments exactly like this one. They've been asleep for 500 years, yet tonight we walked among them. So go ahead and let go of the day behind you. Let the facts and figures fold away into the dark, like lanterns turned gently down. As the lights fade on this era, what dreams await you tonight? Sleep well, and when you're ready to learn again, this explainer will be waiting. Good night.
Welcome to a gentle, relaxing explainer of everyday Ottoman life. Tonight, we're doing things just a little differently. Instead of our usual fast-paced analysis, we're going to slowly explore the quiet, comforting rhythms of the past. We'll use these glimpses of history to guide you as you drift into a calm and restful sleep. So go ahead and get comfortable, let your shoulders drop, and let's begin. Our quiet journey through the Ottoman Empire is slowly coming to an end for the day. Allow yourself to match this slow, calming pace. The busy marketplace we've been exploring, well, it's finally closed its doors. The town now sleeps beneath a sky filled with countless stars. It's got beautiful, peaceful transition from dusk to evening, a time of profound rest. To really understand this piece, we have to look at the concept of the Mahalle. You see, a Mahalle wasn't just a place to live, it was a deeply connected community. After a day of honest work, familiar neighbors returned to these quarters. The residents saw one another day in and day out, fostering a distinct identity that honestly felt a lot like an extended family. It was a place of true safety and shared quiet hours. The narrow stone streets are completely silent now. Just take a slow breath in and out. Imagine the cool night air moving softly through those deserted streets, carrying the faint, sweet scent of jasmine and fresh earth. Somewhere nearby, a neighborhood fountain continues its endless soft flow. Its gentle, rhythmic sound just fills that peaceful darkness. Think about the incredible warmth of that society, which is reflected so perfectly in those words from Rumi. At the end of the day, people shared these simple, sincere offerings. Depending on what they had, friends and neighbors would exchange gifts of food, maybe some homegrown fruit like yellow pears or grapes, or homemade sweetmeats. You know, it wasn't about wealth at all. It was just a gentle gesture of goodwill, asking after someone's health, and creating this immense feeling of comfort and belonging. Let's step indoors now, away from the fading twilight, and into the quiet, intimate sanctuary of a traditional family home. We'll call our resident Yusuf. Inside his home, the final oil lamp, maybe a small vessel crafted from copper or bronze, burns with a warm golden glow. It casts these soft, flickering shadows against the walls as his entire family prepares for a night of deep rest. There is such a soothing symmetry to the traditional Ottoman home. The most crucial thing to notice here is the central gathering space, known as the sofa. Beautifully carved wooden doors opened up into the central area, naturally connecting the private rooms and binding the whole family together in peaceful unity. It really was the beating heart of the home. And stepping inside one of those private rooms, the feeling is just perfectly captured. Notice the small semicircular hearth right in the center of the wall, where the day's fire is slowly fading into glowing embers. Look at the built-in wooden cupboards on either side, intricately carved and perfectly organized. And wrapping all the way around the room, right beneath the windows, are the divans. These cozy, cushioned seating areas provided a soft, welcoming embrace after a long day. So what did true comfort actually look like when it was time to finally sleep? Well, bedding was considered an absolute treasure. Children would drift off on soft floor beds and mattresses known as futons, nestled safely beneath thick wool blankets. They rested their heads on specific face and head pillows, finding deep, uninterrupted rest. Meanwhile, their most precious belongings sat safely tucked away in intricately carved wooden chests nearby. Outside, the moon is shining brightly above the town. Its silver light reflects so peacefully upon the curved domes of the local mosque. It glimmers softly on the tiled rooftops and washes over those quiet stone streets below. The whole world is just bathed in a cool, calming glow. Before we close our eyes, consider this fascinating evolution of how we illuminate the dark. While the ancient world had to rely on unpredictable torches, by the 17th century, the Ottoman streets were navigated safely with portable copper and glass lanterns. And by the 18th century, they even celebrated the night with chira'a, beautiful gardens illuminated by countless gentle oil lamps. Light was something truly cherished, guiding residents peacefully and safely through the dark. Through these softly lit streets, a single night watchman slowly walks through the neighborhood, carrying one of those small lanterns. His gentle footsteps echo rhythmically, dependably, cutting through the peaceful silence of the sleeping neighborhood. We call this reassuring figure the Bekçi. Now, the Bekçi wasn't some rigid, intimidating force. Historically, he was a familiar, friendly, and totally reliable guardian. Employed collectively by the neighbors of the Mahalle, the Bekçi walked the streets to make sure the silence was kept, property was safe, and the entire community could peacefully dream without a single worry. Let your mind wander now, far beyond the town. Out in the vast, silent, dreaming countryside, a caravan slowly crosses the moonlit landscape. Patient camels and weary merchants move steadily and quietly beneath an endless starry sky, completely trusting the calm of the night. And where exactly do they go to rest? Well, they head to a caravanserai. These were welcoming stone sanctuaries, placed exactly a day's journey apart along the major trade routes. Inside these protected walls, travelers found a central courtyard, fresh fountain water for washing up, warm hearths, and incredibly safe, deep rest for both themselves and their gentle pack animals. As the travelers sleep, they know that tomorrow will bring another sunrise. Life will continue exactly as it has for generations. The baker will gently light his oven in the early dawn, and craftsmen will begin shaping wood and copper with slow, patient hands. You see, for ordinary people living in the Ottoman Empire, these simple rhythms were life's greatest treasures. Not vast wealth, not endless power, but the comfort of a warm hearth, the kindness of a neighbor bringing sweet fruit, the safety provided by the Bekçi, and the deep, deep belonging found inside the walls of the Mahalle. Slowly, let that word guide a deep, slow exhale. Let the history we've explored in this explainer wash over you, gently carrying away the busy thoughts of your own day. Peacefully, allow your thoughts to drift away, just like the gentle evening breeze moving softly through the tall, quiet cypress trees outside Yusuf's window. Beautifully, invite your mind to completely relax. Imagine the warm, glowing lanterns, the gentle, rhythmic sound of flowing fountain water, and the comforting aroma of fresh bread waiting for the morning. The peaceful rhythm of a world long past is still here to comfort us. What you should really take away from this is that humanity has always found ways to cultivate warmth, safety, and rest. As you drift off tonight, ask yourself this. In our modern, always-on world, what simple, quiet rhythms from the past could we bring back to find our own peace? Close your eyes, relax your mind, breathe slowly,